don't let any of this go to waste. I mean, every day when we're in camp, we have to remember this feeling, and every game, close games better. You know, we're older now. We can't use the age as an excuse or anything. It's not cute anymore. We're all veterans, and we know each other's game right now, and it's got to be make or break. So.
We want to bring the first NBA championship to Memphis. Like, that is the goal. That's going to continue to be the goal. That's not going to change.
You know, motivation. You know, I mean, it's all there. It's always there for me. But, you know, with the way, not just this year, but the year before, you know, kind of finished, I think we'll be back and we'll be better for sure.
I count receipts, dude. I count receipts.
The offseason. That special time when most NBA teams can lick their wounds and go back to the drawing board and simply ask themselves, what went wrong? While one lucky team gets to finally take a much-needed vacation after a long and hard-fought season that ended with them holding the trophy. After a disastrous and injury-riddled season, the Memphis Grizzlies enter what might be their most important offseason of all time. Gone are the days of young potential as we now enter the put-up-or-shut-up days of this Memphis Grizzlies roster. Zach Kleiman has put together a strong core, but there are still obvious holes in this roster. And with limited money and only one good draft pick, Kleiman will have to be clever if he wants to get this team back to contender status. There's no denying it or even hiding from it. The fact is the Memphis Grizzlies had a bad year, and it would have been a wasted season if not for the emergence of Vince Williams Jr. and G.G. Jackson, not to mention a top pick in this year's draft. That's right, all the injuries and losing will now be worth it, since the Grizzlies have the 7th pick and good odds at 7.5% to move up into a higher pick in the lottery. I mean, it's not like multiple other teams with much worse odds are going to get lucky and move up the board and push the Grizzlies further down the board. Come on! Houston, with just 1.5% odds to move up, and Atlanta, with 3% odds to move up, did just that, as both teams shot up into the top 3, pushing the Grizzlies down into the 9th spot, making this awful season continue well into the offseason. At pick 7, most mock drafts and NBA analysts had Donovan Clingan fall to the Memphis Grizzlies, which on paper seemed like the perfect fit. Donovan is a 7'2", 280-pound center coming off of back-to-back national championships with the UConn Huskies. Clingan is heralded as the next great defensive skilled center, with his ability to guard all bigs one-on-one, patrol the paint and drop coverage. He also plays great help side and recovery defense, aided by his length and great timing. All skills that the Grizzlies desperately need now that Steven Adams is gone, which has left Memphis with no true center on the roster. While Jaren Jackson Jr. is a defensive monster, it has been proven that he is most effective with a bruising center next to him. Donovan Clingan on paper seemed to be the perfect future pairing to Jaren, a pairing that many Grizzlies fans have been clamoring for ever since Donovan declared for the draft after his sophomore year. But now that Memphis has fallen to pick 9, the chances of Clingan dropping are no longer likely, especially with a few of the teams that are now ahead of them, namely the Portland Trailblazers. Rumors begin to swirl that Kleiman and the Grizzlies are looking to trade up in the draft, with Clingan being their main target. But as Donovan begins his draft workouts, his buzz begins to grow, and he is mentioned as high as number 2 to the Washington Wizards. In a draft class that is so poorly talked about, the security of Clingan's abilities are viewed very valuable, especially in a world with Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. As draft night begins and Donovan Clingan starts to slip, the rumblings get louder that Memphis has a deal in place to move up to the 6th spot for the big man out of UConn.
Sounds like the Memphis Grizzlies are moving up from 9 to 6. What do you think is happening here, Wendy?
This now gets us to the first really interesting part of the draft. Portland at number 7, despite having DeAndre Ayton, was a team that was seen as Donovan Clingan's floor. He was not going to get past Portland at 7. That is well known in the league. Memphis has very badly wanted to draft to move up to get Donovan Clingan. They probably talked to everybody from at 3, 4, 5, and finally at 6, Charlotte, who has really had discussions throughout the day to move out of 6. It looks like they have struck a deal with Memphis. We'll see what the price is.
but a last-minute wrinkle surfaces as a player the Hornets want, Tijon Saloon, is linked to go at 8 to the Spurs. So the Hornets decline to make a trade and take their man from France, leaving the Grizzlies holding the bag. Portland subsequently takes Donovan at 7, leaving Memphis fuming. Now at pick 9, with the Grizzlies on the clock and confusion in the air as to who the selection will be, all we know is that the Grizzlies are small, they need size, and big is good. The Memphis Grizzlies shock the world as they take the Canadian giant, Zach Edey.
Whoa!
Oh, Zach Edey going to Memphis.
You want to know why
That
he's
pick
so?
is in.
King, you want to know why he's so happy?
Why?
Because where's Zach Edey on your projections?
Number 4. I don't know. I believe that.
He likes traditional
Everyone
bigs.
jumped out of his seat.
He loves traditional
He
bigs.
does. We learned that about him tonight.
I have him much lower again. I have a lot of questions about how it's going to work defensively for him in the NBA, along the lines of what I think much more so than Clay.
Yeah, 100%.
Memphis was determined to get a center tonight, and this is the center that they got. He's a polarizing player, Zach Edey. I mean, he has worked on his body. He has gotten, a little bit closer to maybe what you would like to see in a guy who can play NBA minutes, but his feet are slow, man. Again, I'm waiting for additional information to potentially present itself about just how serious those talks with Charlotte got between 9 and 6 and how close they could have been to Clingan. And as Clingan and Edey go through their rookie seasons, we might be talking about how this all played out in this last 25 minutes.
If Donovan Clingan was considered big at 7'2", 280, then Zach Edey must be considered a monster at 7'4", 300. For the whole draft cycle, Zach Edey has been projected in the 20s as a player with obvious skills that could help a contending team, but was not actually considered a real project worth investing real money in. However, after a strong showing at the draft combine, where Zach Edey's athletic testing was much better than what most assumed it would be, based off of video and eye tests, most agreed that Donovan Clingan was the more athletic of the two big men. He routinely looked faster and quicker off his feet. But after the numbers came out, it was Edey who looked to be the more athletic of the two, as Zach ranked ahead of Donovan in lane agility time, 3/4 sprint, max vertical leap, and standing vertical leap. Oh, and Edey was also one of the better shooters at the combine, hitting 90% from the free throw line, 56% from 3, and 60% off the dribble. However, even with his great combine showing, Zach Edey was still projected 10 to 15 picks behind Donovan Clingan, which feels strange considering the fact that Edey is the back-to-back Naismith Player of the Year winner, which has only been done 2 other times, Bill Walton and Ralph Sampson, and even more strange considering the fact that Zach Edey absolutely abused Donovan Clingan in the championship game just months ago. Zach Edey scored 37 points, had 10 boards and 2 blocks against the defensive ace big man from UConn, not to mention all while he was facing double and triple teams from the rest of the Huskies. Even with a game plan of anyone but Edey, the Purdue big man still managed to put up one of the greatest championship performances in the history of the game. But even though Zach Edey won the head-to-head matchup, collected historical hardware, and posted better athletic numbers than Donovan, experts still couldn't believe that Memphis would take Edey with a top 10 pick, with some experts going so far as to say it was the worst pick of all time.
Every other team picking after 9 for taking Zach Edey off the board means that they don't have to be tempted to take him. I talked to an NBA scout and he said, out of my 58 board, Zach Edey is number 58. This is the perfect draft for him.
That is so.
His game does not translate.
I hope he is hearing
He does. I don't know why. I do not know why you are investing a top 10 pick with what else is on the board on Zach Edey, a backup center, someone who's going to be a defensive liability. Yes, I understand he's going to set bruising screens for Ja Morant.
Say it like that though.
Yeah, but I'm fired up. But what is his roll rate? He makes 8% of his shots off pick and roll. None of this makes sense. I am completely baffled, and if I'm wrong, I will take the L, but he is not going to translate. He is a poor man's Boban.
To me, this has got to be, a terrible pick. I'm giving it a C grade, and we'll see if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm happy to take the L, but this is one of the worst picks I've seen in draft history.
I can admit that I knew very little about Zach Edey before I started my research on this draft class, and I routinely joked that he was just a big guy beating up on math majors while on the court. But to be fair, even the local NBA experts seem to be fully out on Zach Edey.
Some poor soul is going to take him high.
Some idiot.
I swear to God, if he goes 9 to Memphis, you'll never see me again.
I hope it happens now.
I know you do.
Why wouldn't you? Memphis is a great fit for Edey.
Oh, God.
Why?
You can't be serious.
You had Steven Adams.
Dude, I know. They need a high flyer now. They need somebody that can finish above the rim.
Yeah.
To catch lobs.
Why can't Edey be that guy?
Bro, John Morant could run up and down the court 7 times before Zach Edey would get down the court. Stop.
Honestly, I don't watch college basketball, so my assumptions of Edey were based on a few highlights and ignorance. However, as I started to dig deeper into Zach as a player, I slowly began to believe in him as a legitimate NBA center. On paper, Edey has done everything asked of him and continues to prove his skills time and time again. But for whatever reason, people continue to assume the worst of his basketball talents. Here's Edey in his own words, explaining why he's doubted so often.
Here you are again with people questioning, what you're going to be on the defensive end of the court. Can you guard in space? How do you address those concerns when, say, even NBA franchises through the pre-draft process will bring them up to you?
I think there's a lot of people in this class with weaknesses. Like everybody has weaknesses. It just seems like all everybody wants to talk about is my weaknesses. No one ever talks about what I can do. And that's just kind of part of it. Like you said, like people just doubting me, trying to discount me and what I've done. But it's just part of it. It's got to kind of keep rolling with it and not let it bother you. Like I think that's the one thing about me that it really helped me, honestly. Like people always trying to talk down on me. Like I just kind of learned to just ignore it, just not let it affect me. Like sometimes let it motivate me when before a game or something, when you need that little extra fuel, but not let it control me, and like still stay true to myself and stay true to who I am.
Which has a lot of truth. Zach Edey being so large makes you immediately assume he can't play in today's NBA, that the big men of today are too fast and athletic for Edey to match, not to mention the fact that Edey's going to get diced up in the pick and roll game. But are these expectations true, or are we just assuming this? Edey was used less aggressively on defense due to Purdue being so dependent on his offensive ability, leading to Zach purposely not playing 100% on the defensive end out of the fear of picking up too many fouls.
I think when the skeptics or the people who are hesitant to believe that he can really work in the NBA, they often point to the stuff on the defensive end of the court, that he's going to have trouble in space, he's going to have trouble with smaller guys.
His ball screen defense is a lot better than you think it is. And and I heard Zach speak publicly, and he talked about and it's good intel that we told him not to foul. Well, I tell everybody not to foul. So that's we have the fewest amount of fouls in the country. It's a hell of a concept, right? Don't foul people. But with him especially, he has a good point, and he's going to be more aggressive defensively. We actually switched and veered off a lot of different pick and roll stuff, and he was really good at it. You can pull him out and take him. He is much better than you would think. I'm not saying that it's not foolproof, but I watched the playoffs, and all those guys struggle against elite guards. So when they say that, I'm like, yeah, no question, I got you. But that's the same for a lot of people. There's very, very few people that's going to handle John Morant in a switch.
I can also assure you that there's a big difference in having Jaren Jackson Jr. and Marcus Smart as your teammates on defense rather than Trey Kaufman-Renn and Fletcher Lawyer. Why aren't these same draft experts that are attacking Zach Edey for all the things that he can't do not talking about the things that he can do? And while I agree that Edey will have some issues on defense, he's going to be really good on the offensive side. And for being honest, there's probably only a handful of people in the NBA that could guard him one-on-one. Zach is a multi-skilled big man, scoring in the paint with a variety of moves and soft touch, and he also hits his free throws, so you really can't foul him. I'm not saying Edey's going to run through the NBA, but I am saying that Zach on a team with John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Marcus Smart will make it very hard for opposing teams to throw multiple bodies at the big man from Purdue, leaving him to go to work on offense versus much smaller defenders. Now, I did mention in a previous video that the Grizzlies could select Zach Edey. but I was assuming the Grizzlies would trade back to get an additional asset to pair with the big man. Unfortunately, there is a reason Memphis was unable to trade back, as there were a few other teams in the lottery that were seriously considering Zach Edey's. The Grizzlies jumped at 9 and got the big man that they wanted all along, at least according to Zach Kleiman.
Zach, there were kind of reports throughout the day of you guys trying to move up on the board. What was today like? Specifically, I think with Charlotte, it seemed like you guys were interested in going there. How did all of this play out until you get into 9?
Well, let's just say this is exactly what we were hoping would happen tonight.
I think there is some truth to what Kleiman is saying here. I truly believe if the Grizzlies wanted Donovan Clingan, there was a trade that they could have made, but as they decided that the price was too high, they most likely just settled on the next highest ranked big man in Zach Edey. So yes, what happened is what the Grizzlies wanted to happen, but I also think that we're all smart enough to know that when Wojnarowski is reporting a rumor, there is definitely truth to it. So with the Grizzlies landing their big man, they now turn to day 2 of the draft. Yes, day 2, as now the NBA has been split into multiple days for the draft. Which is great, because I always wondered what it would look like to cram too many people into a room and watch them awkwardly walk a few steps to get a hat from the wrong team. The Grizzlies entered day 2 with picks at 39 and 57, and it was clear that Memphis had a clear mindset on what was important to target in round 2. If round 1 was size, then round 2 was shooting. The Grizzlies took Jalen Wells out of Washington State, a good-sized wing with a good 3-ball and defensive upside. Memphis then traded up from 57 to 53 and took the veteran guard Cam Spencer out of UConn, a tough-minded player with a jump shot only matched by his competitive spirit. Memphis has been hit or miss on their first-round picks over the most recent years, but they've been spot on when it comes to evaluating good talent in round 2, and after watching Summer League, it looks like the Grizzlies have found 2 more solid players for the back end of their rotation. Jalen Wells projects as a modern-day 3-and-D. His size and shooting ability track well for his potential. Jalen spent his first few years at Sonoma State until he was finally able to get his name out there and was signed with a bigger college in Washington State, where he started 20 of the 34 games. Wells averaged over 12 points, 4 rebounds, and shot 42% from 3, and he also shot 42% on catch-and-shoot threes, and over 80% from the free throw line. Jalen has also shown skill as an on-ball defender, using his size and athleticism to guard multiple positions. But the same cannot be said about his off-ball defense, where he seems to get lost and lose his assignments. Cam Spencer is a veteran guard out of college. He actually played with Santi Aldama at Loyola, after which he then transferred to Rutgers and then used his extra year of eligibility from COVID to join UConn last year, where he started every game en route to helping them win their second championship in a row. Cam is a mid-sized guard, standing at 6'3", not in shoes, with just an average wingspan at about 6'5". But he makes up for his lack of size with his non-stop play style, where he plays every possession like the game is on the line. Cam is such a basketball nut job that at the draft combine, he spent his free time watching film of the scrimmages and making notes on how to improve his game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't hide it. I can't, that's just who I am. I didn't come here for fun, honestly. I came here to win. We didn't get the win today. I was pretty mad about that, and then not having a good shooting performance. That's not fun to me. Nothing fun about that at all. So, I watching film right before we got in here. My dad recorded it on our Xfinity app, and I'm already watching film, just trying to get better and learn from it. But at the end of the day, they were good looks, and they'll go in tomorrow.
Basketball is his one and only obsession, and in his own words,
why do people keep calling you this? Why the same word? Why this? And he was like, oh, I'm just the ultimate competitor, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, but everyone in the NBA is a competitor. That's why we're here. What makes you different? This guy looked me in the eyes, you guys, and said, the difference is I would sacrifice my life on the court to win a basketball game. I said, oh,
okay,
I get it. And then he just walked away.
Lay down your life for Summer League Grizz.
So with the draft over and done, the Grizzlies look to free agency as the offseason keeps moving. Free agency is the time when teams and players can look to the market and decide their own fate. As the first hours and days ticked away, other teams around the league were burning up their phones as they added marquee names to their roster, hoping to push the needle just a little bit in hopes of landing a championship next year. While the Grizzlies' rivals were throwing money around trying to get better, well, Memphis responded with crickets. As the free agency period moved along, the Grizzlies just stood pat and let seemingly solid players get scooped up by other teams on pretty reasonable deals. But then, it finally happened. Zach Kleiman came down from the mountains with news. Zaire Williams had been traded to the Nets in a salary dump move. Not the move that Grizzlies fans were hoping for, but it was definitely a move that needed to be done. Zaire Williams was one of Kleiman's only draft failures, and a constant black eye that the team could have had Trey Murphy instead. This move also freed up a roster spot and cut cap space. But then, out of nowhere, Memphis made another move. They re-signed Luke Kennard to a solid deal. And that was it. In fact, the Grizzlies' coaching staff had more additions in the offseason than the actual roster did. Zach Kleiman weighed the landscape and has decided to once again hope for internal growth, a healthier roster, and has now tripled down on his hope to get actual good rookies. That's it, folks. Nothing else to see here. The Summer League is where we separate the NBA casuals and the NBA sickos. I love the NBA Summer League. You get to see so many players that are giving everything they have for that one shot to prove themselves. This is also your first chance to see those top players drafted prove their worth. And Game 1 versus the Utah Jazz will be an immediate prove-your-worth game, as the Jazz, much to the surprise of everyone, were playing their starting center, Walker Kessler. Walker is no slouch. He is widely regarded as one of the best defensive centers in the league, has good size, runs the floor well, and has been second in blocks the last 2 years. In fact, if there was a center that was primed and ready for a one-on-one matchup against Zach Edey, it would be Walker Kessler. Unfortunately for Kessler, Edey showed that he might actually be pretty good at this whole basketball thing. Zach Edey routinely bullied Kessler and the other bigs of Utah on his way to 14 points, 15 rebounds, and 4 blocks. And he scored a last-second field goal to send the game into overtime, doing so by throwing Kyle Filipowski to the side and holding off Walker Kessler with just one arm. But because this is the Memphis Grizzlies we're talking about and good things aren't allowed to last, Zach Edey rolled his ankle in the game and was then subsequently held out of all future games in the Utah League. With Edey eager to prove his worth, he was finally given the green light to come back in the Summer League for the games in Las Vegas, where he once again looked good early, but then rolled his ankle for a second time, prompting the Grizzlies to then permanently shut down Edey for the rest of the Summer League. But by this point, the cat was out of the bag about Zach actually being pretty good. The odds makers moved Zach Edey all the way up to the odds-on favorite to now win Rookie of the Year, something that Grizzlies fans everywhere were excited to hear about after so many experts spent time bashing Zach Edey's ability. Well, I shouldn't say everyone was excited about this news, as local radio hosts were not so thrilled and decided to attack the fans for enjoying the small moment.
Zach Edey and Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
If you will oblige me.
Yes.
Please do.
If you bet on Zach Edey at 6-1 to win Rookie of the Year, you are an idiot. You are an idiot. There is no world where Zach Edey should be the favorite to be the Rookie of the Year next season in the NBA. Zach Edey's usage rate is going to be minimal. It's going to be minimal. He's not going to get the ball because guys like Sarr, Reese Hache, Reed Shepherd, list goes on. They're going to be guys on bad teams that have more opportunities, more minutes, more scoring, that are just going to do more than Zach. Zach Edey will not be the Rookie of the Year next year, and he certainly should not be the favorite at 6-1. That is outrageous. You know, and I got a guy on here saying, I got a guy on here on Twitter saying that I'm being negative by saying that Zach Edey won't win Rookie of the Year. That's negative.
A guy that was picked 9th in the NBA draft. I'm saying it won't be the Rookie of the Year. I'm being negative. I mean, it's just,
Can't do that in Memphis, John.
People just, the IQ sometimes around people is just, it's low. It's dangerously low these days, man. You know what I mean? Where is the critical thinking? Where did it go?
While Edey only played a game and a half in the Summer League, that was more than enough to change the minds of nearly everyone, even those that were previously negative on Zach.
That was as exciting a first impression that you can have of somebody. Whatever my expectations were blown away.
Yeah, I mean, you got a guy that know how to play right away. Like, you could tell, you could just see. If your imagination can push you towards the league and how the league's played, our explosive point guard, Ja Morant, our skilled other big man, Jaren, just those pieces around him, you could tell he's ready to play right now. Man, look at him. Just stay with it. Stay with it. Big boy. Oh, and look, head
We've
top.
never had anybody that does that.
Head top.
Okay, so I told Kevin this morning as we were recording our Spotify podcast, I said to him, look now, I just want to prepare everybody after what I watched last night. I love the diving on the floor. I love the standing up for a teammate. I loved all the extra stuff. Obviously, this is the tip. And by the way, he's plowing through Filipowski and Walker Kessler to get that.
Just a winning basketball
Too little!
play. 50-50 ball.
You're so little!
That right there show you he got some grit and grind in him right there. His will to win right there on that play showed me a lot, man.
While Edey's time was short-lived in the Summer League, there were plenty of other things for the Grizzlies fans to be hopeful for. The entire roster played well for the most part, as they rode their good play into the finals where they lost to an equally talented Miami Heat team. Notable standouts would have to be Gigi Jackson, who had a slow start in Utah but found his game in Las Vegas. Gigi routinely looked like the best player on the court, showing off a variety of moves and next-level scoring that makes it look like last year wasn't a fluke. Jake LaRavia, now in his 3rd year, also decided to play in Summer League, and for the most part, he played pretty well. He scored in bursts, and his game looked really controlled. Jake playing well might have actually been what finally sent Zaire Williams packing. Scottie Pippen Jr. continues to look like a real NBA point guard on both ends of the court. Scottie seemingly scored at will and made opposing guards' lives hell as the defense was non-stop. Also weird to note, but seemingly Scottie was snubbed for the Summer League MVP, which doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but it was definitely something that people noticed. The other 2 rookies, Jalen Wells and Cam Spencer, also showed out. Cam Spencer did exactly what you would expect. He played too hard for Summer League, hit a bunch of jumpers, and became a fan favorite. Unfortunately, he also hurt his ankle and was then shut down. Jalen Wells had some moments both good and bad, as he started the Summer League missing every 3 he took, but then subsequently had a game where he couldn't miss from 3 and led the Grizzlies to an unexpected win. Jalen also got better on defense as the games went along and was given tougher assignments each night. Jalen being able to shoot will get him on the court, but being able to play defense is what's going to keep him there. The Grizzlies and Zach Kleiman came into this offseason needing to make improvements, and as opposed to being more traditional in signing veterans or making trades, Kleiman has once again looked toward the draft to find good talent for cheap. If this pays off and this class of rookies can bring real value, and if the Grizzlies' young players can continue to grow, and if the core stars can stay healthy, then this team could make a run. But that's a lot of ifs, and I'll give you one more. If this doesn't work out and it blows up in Kleiman's face, he won't be here to try again next offseason. If you're enjoying the series, be sure to like and subscribe. Episode 3 will follow training camp, the preseason, and how the roster is shaping up. Until next time.
Everybody stay on that side when they switched up. You switched up.